Hello and welcome to ThisConnect. And today's conversation is about speeding, going as fast as you can.
Pushing the
Test-
limit.
Yeah, testing your boundaries. All for being safe.
What are we talking about?
The racetrack.
Now, the reason why we're doing this is because from the first and the second podcast episode, we got a lot of comments about what topic should we be talking about. And this is the first time we are picking up a topic from you guys. And you wanted to know what it is about the racetrack that really excites us so much. And we'll hopefully close by giving you a sense of what it would cost and what the logistics is like so that you have very real information about why you should do it and how you should do it.
You know, there was in one of the previous podcasts, Shumi was talking about riding and spoke of it as a sport. And it may have jarred with some of you who are using motorcycles to just commute. But the mindset of why he would have called it a sport, and while the idea is not to suggest that you should be out racing on roads, is that mindset and that how it can be cultivated to benefit you. I think that's what we want to talk about.
But let's begin at the beginning. What was the first time you went to the racetrack and what was that like?
Man. The first time I went to the racetrack, I think would be somewhere around 2008, 2009. And I'll tell you what I call the racetrack since then. I call the racetrack a mirror because that's what it is. You know, on the roads, you can be doing stuff and, you know, saying, I overtook that one, I was faster than that one, and all of that. But when you have an empty racetrack, to me, that is the most formidable adversary, the most clearest look at you that you can get. That's the racetrack. Because then there are no arguments. What you do, how you do it, all on your own. There's no getting away from the fact that the corner hasn't moved. It's right where it was years ago. It's still there now. It's what you do as you go around it that makes a difference.
Yeah, so the first time I rode a motorcycle at the racetrack was at the R15 launch. I was so bad at it that the Yamaha guys basically refused to take my feedback saying this rider doesn't know anything. I'm not kidding, okay? So if you know Chennai,
Yeah.
they came around up to turn 6 or 7 and the guy basically passed me and left. And when I came back into pit lane, various people like Aspi Bathena who are like senior racers who've ridden so many racetracks so well, their feedback was being taken very seriously.
Right.
And they basically didn't want to look me in the eye because they said, isko to kuch pata hi nahi hai. What does he know? And honestly, I went up to Aspi on that event and I said, Aspi, I'm lost. I don't know what to do.
Oh man, I was just going to say this. The first time I was on the racetrack, that time, I was lost.
Yeah.
I was lost. I had no idea of inside line, outside line, whatever that. I was just floating around like a butterfly would in a wind. Like, okay, यहाँ जाता हूँ, वहाँ जाता हूँ. It was like that. कुछ भी कर लो. It was bizarre. Now I look back at it and it was like, it was terrible.
So Aspi's advice was good advice and it works. And his advice was, you're at the racetrack for the first time. You don't know what's happening and that's fine. That's how it's supposed to be. So focus on enjoying yourself as much as you can and not crashing so that your first experience of the racetrack is a good one. And the more you do the racetrack, the easier this will get, the more familiar this environment will become, and eventually you'll know what to do.
Right.
Since then, of course, I went to school and I discovered that CSS first, TWO next, and now I teach at TWO. Just somebody orienting you to the racetrack by saying, hey, look, there are no cows, there are no trees to hit, there are no traffic poles to hit, there's no sidewalk, there's no traffic coming at you. It's going to feel intensely unfamiliar. All the usual things that you use to orient yourself in traffic on your motorcycle or in your car have been taken away. And that's why the idea of the corner is still there, holding a mirror to your ability. It's because all of the stuff that you could normally hide behind, where you could take a risk and go faster, it's not there, right? And it's beautiful once you figure it out, because as unsettling as my first time was, I knew deep down that watching the other guys go faster than me was not hurtful as much as it was a challenge. Saying, wait, if Vikrant and Varad can go so fast, I don't think that they're superior human beings to me. If they can figure it out, I can figure it out. I just don't know how right now. So I just need to get to the end of this day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, at which point I do my usual saying, you know, has nobody else done this before. They have. One. Two, if they can do it, I can do it, because I don't believe I'm inferior in any way. So they've figured some stuff out. I'll figure this stuff out. And the schools really gave you a leg up, right? I could have reached the stage of riding I am at by myself, but just having somebody watch you and say, okay, try this, look here at this time, think about it like this, approach it like this, changes everything for me.
So I think it is a lot about, it's a mind game, not in the sense of the game, but it is a game of the mind, right? What you're talking about is going on the same corner, and maybe 2 or 3 sessions later, you are doing it way better.
Yeah, and sorry, most people don't realize that when you say 2 sessions, 3 sessions later, you've attacked that corner, I don't know, 40 times by then,
yeah.
60 times by then, and the corner is unchanged fundamentally. When you're at a very high level, yes, the corner does change session to session as temperatures rise and fall. But at the early stage, you are not sensitive to any of this because your skill level is so far away from the envelope that you can push.
Absolutely.
Right. So 60 times around a corner with the ability to say, what did I do the last time? How do I change that? How will that affect my speed, my pace, my confidence? It's just epic. It's literally how you play video games.
Like, no, I didn't get that.
So see, you get a new video game and you start playing and then you get killed. And then you play it again.
Respawn.
And then you respawn. And then you play the same thing again. And by the 10th time, you know what the opponent is going to do, either at the level of what the AI will do, or that it's a scripted thing and that guy is going to do a scripted thing. Right? So we played Contra by learning the script. We knew who was going to shoot when.
Right.
And that's how we won Contra. Today's games are more complicated. There's actual AI involved. So the characters play back differently. But you learn what the AI's pros and cons are, and you learn to work around it. In the game, you die constantly, but it costs you nothing. On a racetrack, you might fall off a few times, and it's not often that you fall off. But a racetrack is designed to let you have a good crash.
Right.
Right? A bad crash is when you fall off on the road, you slide into a sidewalk or a pole or something, a hard object stops your deceleration. When it stops your deceleration, the G's amp up, and that's what breaks bones and causes all the damage. The racetrack is designed to let you continue to slide until you come to a natural stop in most cases.
And before we get into those aspects, once again, I think it's important to understand that when we're talking about the racetrack, it's not because either one of us wants to become racers. It's not because we are planning to compete or we have massive egos which are out to prove points with people at random. Is because we have learned, we were fortunate to, and back then when we started, access to such facilities or such opportunities was really rare, which is not the case today. And we were lucky to start off then, and we learned over that period of time doing sessions on the racetrack that learning to ride properly is actually a science. It's not a question of just reflex, of getting on and I'll give the throttle, I have to just change the gears and I'm done and I managed to steer. No, there's more involved. If you actually break it down, and which is what the schools do, what you have is a process. And that process isn't just for going faster. Fast, as we spoke recently, is an outcome. It's smoothness that you get out of it. And that smoothness is life-altering. I'm not kidding you. Because suddenly you'll find so much more room inside your head to think, to process. The speed feels very natural then. It's not forced. And that is something why we talk about the racetrack so much, right? It's a must do. If you can do it, it's a must do because it's a skill set. Kind of like we talk about ABS, right? Why you must have ABS. It's like insurance for you, your motorcycle, your car for the lifetime. This skill does the same thing, only it's embedded in you. Fair?
Absolutely. And you can upgrade your motorcycle by adding accessories. And when you sell off that motorcycle, the accessories go. If you upgrade your skills, they come with you no matter what you're riding. And even if you borrow your friend's bike, the skill comes with you.
Right.
The other part is the ego part of the racetrack, right? Now, I've heard of track days where ego plays a huge part. And when you pass somebody who's been at the track day for a long time, you're naturally talented, it can cause friction. But there is the other side to it. Like Anand's track days, the TWO track days are built around the idea saying, I'm fast is not a reason why I'm superior. It's just that I know a little bit more about this than you, and I'm happy to reveal it to you and share it with you. And what that immediately does is allows everybody to suspend their egos a little bit. So I go to every track day, every motorcycle launch at the racetrack, knowing that somebody will be faster than me. And the response there is not, that guy's faster than me. The response is, what can I learn from that guy?
Absolutely.
So that I can be faster as well. And you realize then that two people can be very fast without causing harm to each other.
Yeah.
Racing is a slightly different mindset. But if you have friends riding together, the fastest guy will teach you how to go faster, and then the whole group becomes better.
This might be a bit of a off-track tangent in that sense, but I do think that spirit needs to kind of seep into the world of racing as well, right? Especially if you're talking motorcycle racing, where you've literally got skin in the game. If the guy you're racing against is somebody you don't trust, or is somebody who is untrustworthy, that's kind of like a broken game. Things can go down south really hard.
Yeah,
right?
but my mindset about that changed when I spent a year during this first season of the Royal Enfield Continental GT Cup. We were making those films for Power Drift.
Yeah.
And when I met the racers, what I understood is that their mindset is not like this. They're not hostile to each other. They're willing to help, but they're willing to help up to a point.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if I am a good racer and you're a starting out racer, I will help you a lot because I don't see you as a threat. I see you as a friend who's joined the fraternity.
Right.
As you start showing your talent and you start becoming a threat, then the competitive side of racing asserts itself.
Of course.
And then you're no longer willing to share all the information.
Absolutely. What I mean by this is when you're sharing track space, when all of you, everybody who's on the racetrack, is going at your limit, right? And maybe a little bit over, you still have that consideration for the other people that you are sharing. No.
My information says otherwise.
Because look at MotoGP, look at how conscious they are about where they place their bikes. They understand, I feel that they understand that next time it could be them. So if somebody, it's such rare occasions that you find that there's something genuinely stupid happening. Right?
No. So see, racers are very intelligent that you have to take as a given. Otherwise, you could not race. Okay. So anybody who thinks that a motorcycle racer is just an extremely fit dumbass on a bike, it's just wrong. Some of the smartest guys rise to the absolute top of racing. Like if you meet anybody who's in the MotoGP paddock, you can bet that they have enormously high IQs. But my understanding of how racers work is it's a lot of self-preservation and a lot of and not a lot of consideration. They're trying to make sure that they win.
I kind of disagree with Shumi over here on this one. I think there would have to be some amount of consideration, especially on two wheels. If it's on cars, it can be harder because you're not physically going to be in touch with somebody else. There's a very direct chance of harm in this case, which is where I feel that.
Yeah, so you know why it is different? See, when we go to a track day, the two of us, we are track day riders, we don't think crashing is a way to learn. We think crashing is something that might happen along the way, and it has. You've also crashed at the racetrack, I've also crashed at the racetrack. And we think we had minor crashes and we are lucky, but we've learned a lot before the crash happened, so we're doing okay.
Right.
But to a racer, a crash is not a challenge. A crash is as normal as a race start or a race finish.
Yeah, absolutely.
From that perspective, whatever I have seen of it, they are not worried about that.
Yeah, they're not worried about
what
crashing.
they're only worried about is that if they forget self-preservation entirely and are in genuine physical contact with another rider, it might end their race. The fact that it might end the other guy's race is not that important a deal.
Okay, interesting.
Right? And no, and as cruel as that sounds, I think at the top level of practically any sport, any pursuit, any hobby that you choose, it does get a little cutthroat because the passions are high, the commitment levels are high, and the rewards are high.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question now. Have you taken part in any racing series?
No.
No?
It's just like every time the opportunity is presented itself, I've realized that my ability to ride a motorcycle fast for a long time is way more important to me than proving that I'm faster than another human being or not. You know, so in that sense, if you were to invite me to an event where say everybody gets a lap, you're the only person on the racetrack, do what you can, I'd probably sign up. But you say I'm going to put 10 people on the grid, 3 of whom have the racer mindset, 5 of whom are somewhere in the middle, and 4 of them are hopped up track day riders trying to win a race. I want no part of that.
So I've been part of a race series, and it was the Suzuki Gixxer Cup, right? And this was the open category.
Wow, you really took something on, yeah?
On a 150cc motorcycle against racers.
Yeah.
That was shaming. I think third last or something like that. And I'm not sure if the other guys, I was third last because the other guys didn't finish or what. I don't remember. But it was an incredible, all of what Shumi was saying just now. Like there's that sense of really being on the edge when you're with the racers. But the one thing, despite everything, every time a faster guy, and I went past me, right, and zipped off into the distance. You know what happened over that race weekend? I got 7 seconds faster per lap.
Yeah.
There's that line, right? Stealing speed. I really felt like I was stealing speed. I was just like in my zone. I was like, these guys are racing. I'm here as a spectator who happens to be on the track with them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just try and keep this clean. But still, despite that, somehow their drive infuses you and it seeps into you. And I ended up saving 7 seconds over the course of 2 days. And we just done a little bit of track time before that on those motorcycles. So I knew where I was. So I had very fair reference points. It was crazy. And after that, if you ask me, so on the SF, the sense of control and confidence that I left the track with was incredible.
Yeah.
Was incredible.
How does that transfer to the real world? How does a street racer benefit from going to the racetrack?
So exactly, like with the SF, and I think I was using either the Jigsaw or the SF at that point in time, and you just went out and let's say if you were in an emergency situation, you know, the mind is the part that can mess things up.
Yeah.
Now the mind was trained so well that in that much distance, I can stop the bike this much that half the time you didn't get into a panic zone at all, right?
Correct.
You are well within. So it's basically your horizons have expanded. Your sense of confidence has gone up. So things that you're dealing with, which would have maybe been dangerous at other points in time, now are just handled very calmly. It's like very matter of fact, right? That I got this.
Yeah.
It's not a stress point anymore.
Yeah.
And so that was really an eye-opener aside from doing the track days. But you know what? I'm going to talk about cars also here because it's very, people find it very easy to push cars because there's lots less work to do, so to speak.
And they won't fall over, right?
Yeah, and they won't follow, right? But on a racetrack, even then, when you're talking about driving, and forget a racetrack, just simple lane change. You know, very often we do these lane change tests, hard braking tests followed by a lane change. Just that exercise, I'm not kidding. We've had the opportunity to do these in some nice high performance cars. Just managing to do it in the parameters that were set
Yeah.
at speeds like 70, 80, which you'd think like, big
A
deal.
pedestrian, yeah.
My God, when you get it right, when you can get that, you know, how we're used to turning in is like this. When you're asked to do that and then correct right back and step on the brakes, my God, that feels like for those few seconds, you're just like,
Yeah, yeah, like you achieved something.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I got away with that.
Yeah.
And that sense of control, and every time when you're doing these exercises, and I'd call them exercises, they just leave you with far more room in your head.
So other side of this is when we come back from school and now we do 3-day track days, right? So there's one day which is just a track day where you just practice for yourself, and then 2 days of school where I teach. I come back and on Monday when I get on a motorcycle, I find myself going much calmer than normal.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily slower. It's like I have a temporary power up that allows my skill level to be 30% above normal. And then by day 4, I will feel like, you know, I'm just riding normally now, and that calmness will sort of disappear.
Right.
And it took somebody else to notice, saying that every time I come back from the racetrack, I seem to ride smoother and more flowing, as it were, in traffic. Which means every time I come back, having learned something at the racetrack, because that's why we go, right? It's a constant effort to, what can I learn this time and what can I bring back to my riding? Something transfers to the street every time, and you raise the level of your street riding. The first 2 days, it's very obvious that something has changed. By day 3, 4, it is your new method, and you don't realize that you're doing it. And when you ride with somebody who spent the same amount of time testing motorcycles but didn't go to the racetrack in the intervening, which happened to me at the RC390 launch, for example. In my group, there were a couple of people who were good riders, but they've just not been to a racetrack regularly, whereas I've been going now for 15, 16 years. And suddenly the difference is massive. It's like, I'm not able to figure out why they won't go any faster. And then they come back and talk to you in pit lane saying, wow, you're really riding well. And then you realize that they would go faster, but they haven't spent the time learning to go faster. And what the racetrack unlocks, I think, the biggest thing is a trouble-free environment where you can think only and only about how to make your riding more confident.
Okay, so we've spoken about racers, we've spoken about testers. Would you say that if you were a learner, right, like you're just getting your motorcycle license, would you still advise somebody like that to come to the racetrack?
So I'll take you on a little trip here, okay? During COVID, I started working out for the first time. I've never like seriously worked out. I've played sports in school and then long back. And immediately the gains came fast, right? If you ate well, your body changed. And if you worked out, your muscles grew. And then that process slows down as your body gets used to it. I think a learner is at the freshest, most fertile place of all. If I had the opportunity to rewind time and go back to when I learned to ride a motorcycle, what I would change today is to immediately find a way to get on a racetrack. Now, this would be 1994, 5, something like that, 7, something like that, right? I don't even know how I would do this. But if at that stage I had discovered the racetrack, as a rider today, I'd be so much faster, so much better, so much more confident today. That I would say, if you know how to physically operate a motorcycle, which is you know where the clutch is, what to do with it, you know where the brakes are, what to do with it, where the throttle is. At that stage, you are ready for the racetrack. The earlier you come, the more you will learn, the faster you will learn. And the younger you are, your ability to take a little risk and learn from it is much, much better developed. Right? The biggest difference I have noticed when Singhi and I ride together at the racetrack is that he still has the courage to say, when somebody walks up to him and says, Singhi, in that corner, if you go 5 kmph faster and do this, it'll make a big difference. He can try it within the next 2 laps. And you can immediately see that he's able to use that technique and go faster. It implies that his ability to take that risk is slightly more open than mine.
I just don't think that much. That's it.
I am the opposite. I want to think about everything and I want to do everything at my pace and take the least risk possible. So what Singhi will do in 3 laps, I might take 3 months to do. So I can see him get faster at the racetrack every single time he rides. And I will ride at a pace for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, sometimes a year. And then I will drop my lap time by 2 seconds. And Anand saw this and he was very, very amused. But this is how I learned.
Yeah, somebody's riding on slicks these days.
That's because I was forced to. I cannot afford them. So, but the fun part is that I learn in steps. Okay, so I have lots of stuff being internalized and thought about. I'm not willing to take that risk today. And then one day, naturally, I'll be ready to do it. And then 2 seconds. And then maybe for the next 6, 8, 10 months, there is no visible improvement in my lap times. I'm just very happy riding the bike.
Okay. There's another really cool thing that happened for me at the racetrack, and it has nothing to do with motorcycles. It has to do with life in general. So like CSS, you remember the classes and all the steps, right? Yeah. If you think about all the steps, and I'm going to admit here, I like meditating, and so I get to think about this a lot. So even the track experience is a lot like meditation. It's really intense. It becomes one core area of focus. And that's what happens in all these schools, even in TWO, right? You're doing one thing. And if you think about those lessons that you learn, what is needed to ride a motorcycle well, those rules apply to life. I'm not kidding you. The one thing that you'll be taught is be relaxed. The other thing you'll be told is look far. You'll be told don't fixate. It's trippy. These are all things that you can just take away from there and say, yeah, that works in life as well.
And you know the amazing thing? One of the most important things we teach at the racetrack is it's easy to get busy and then you have to de-busy yourself. And one of the ways to do that is to breathe. Do you know how many phone calls I've had from friends who were in various situations? And my only advice to them is, hey, dude, breathe. Directly racetrack to life and life to racetrack, right? Yeah. Just breathe. It'll be okay. And then they'll go, okay, this is a bad situation. I said, yeah, see, you've calmed down already. Now figure it out. It's not hard to do. Then it's incredible. Okay. So it's pretty clear that a racetrack is a very essential part of a serious rider's journey to becoming a better motorcyclist, a better car driver, a better human being, and a variety of other things.
It's true.
It's also enormously fun to do. It's one of the best weekend things you can do by yourself with your motorcycle, with your machine, with your car, whatever. What about the people you meet at the racetrack? How do they add a perspective into this?
So one of the things I'm gonna have to say is that one of my friends and colleagues, Priyadarshan from SIG, like people kind of there are cliches, right, for everything. There are you're gonna visualize somebody goes to the racetrack must be like this. And Priyadarshan used to be fairly overweight earlier. He's lost a lot of weight now. PD, no shaming here. This is just out of love. But you look at him on a motorcycle, right? He is quick.
Very.
He's quick. So guys who are out there thinking that, no, I'm too short or I'm too fat or I'm too tall. No, man, drop it. Come to the racetrack. Let your skills talk for you, right?
Yeah.
So don't pass that judgment in the first place.
Yeah, and think about it like this. If you're overweight, come to the racetrack, discover that you have a natural talent for it. And you're going fast and everybody's like admiration, right?
Yeah.
And then you say, hey, this is serious. I can do this even better. Then you lose 10 kilos. Dude, you're going to kill it the next time you come. The racetrack gives you an incentive to be fitter.
Yeah.
The fitness will give you more speed and more respect in the pit lane. There's no way that you can lose this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've been to track days 8 times a year roughly for 16 years now. I don't know of anybody who was fat shamed.
Right.
People told themselves that their fitness level was unacceptable if this is what they wanted to do 8 times a year, including me. But nobody has ever been
You
told,
were fat shamed?
No, not by people, by me.
Oh.
When I'm saying I'm 88 kilos on a 210 and
like,
I'm
who
suffering.
Have the guts to do that, huh?
I'm 88 kilos, I'm on a 210, I'm suffering a little bit. So if I had a better core, if I had a little bit more strength, if I had a little bit less weight, then my motorcycling would get better, and it did, right? What does a new rider have to do to get to a racetrack today? What's the logistics like?
I think first and foremost, registering for a racetrack. I mean, for a school, I would say, not a racetrack. For a school, I think is the first step.
Yeah.
Once you have that, it's a question of getting your bike down there.
Not always.
Not always, yeah.
So the easy way to do this, if you live in Chennai especially, it's super easy. Just go to pay and practice. It's cheap. It's designed for people like you. And remember, it will be chaotic because it's cheap, right? A lot of people show up. And including in there are racers who are trying to practice for their race season. So it's a little bit chaotic, but as a first experience, it can be done at a very, very low cost.
Yeah.
I don't even believe that pay and practice has hit 5,000 rupees a weekend yet.
Right.
Okay. The better way to do this is to sign up for a school where you will be given a racetrack with a little bit of guidance and reference points. Reference points in the sense of this is what this environment is, this is how you're expected to perform, this is what the etiquette is, this is how you ride without being scared of other people, and this is how you ride without scaring other people.
Right.
Unfortunately, the BIC and as far as I know, the Curry Motor Speedway don't do pay and practice, so it's only a Chennai thing. Schools happen in all three places. BIC being an expensive circuit, schools are generally very expensive there. To learn Curry is to me the most challenging of these circuits. It teaches you stuff the fastest. Chennai is financially a good circuit. It has a challenge. It's not a very expensive circuit. BIC is a fantastic circuit to ride in terms of the aura of it. It's a slightly boring circuit to ride for the most part.
If you don't have like liter class machines and stuff like that.
Unless you have a really fast machine. And to me, you can't really learn on super fast machines because you're so scared of the performance first that it takes a lot of time to unlock your brain past the performance and start actually focusing on what you're doing with the motorcycle. Right. So start on something you're super comfortable riding.
So guys, on this note, if you're going to a track school or something like that, ideally go on whatever you have, right? You're familiar with it. And that's one of the biggest challenges. If you land up at a track and have something new to learn, to ride in the first place, that's going to be a challenge in itself. What you want to focus on are the techniques, the principles, right?
Yeah.
So in which case, you've had all kinds of bikes at the school, right?
We've had all kinds of bikes at the school. I have instructed on all kinds of bikes at the school.
Really?
Yeah. So we've done CBR 250Rs, 150Rs, KTMs of all sorts, R15s, Dodo's famous R15, which was much lighter than stock, the Multistrada, the 210, R6s, you name it. We've taught and learned on everything. So the machine you take to the racetrack, honestly, it does not matter. We've taught people on impulses. We've taught people on bullets. Actual bullets, not Royal Enfields in general, bullets.
Wow.
We've taught people on V-rods. We've taught people on Tigers.
Right.
The idea is it's a clutter-free environment for you to think about your riding, and it's not necessarily sport bike territory. When you get serious about the racetrack, it becomes sport bike territory. But if you're going there to clean up your skills, it doesn't matter what you ride. As long as all of it functions and it doesn't drop oil wherever it goes, we are good. That's a basic safety thing, right?
That's critical.
Yeah. So do the school first is our recommendation. School fees are generally in the range of about 15 to 30,000 rupees depending on the school, not counting BIC schools because BIC is a significantly bigger and more expensive circuit. You will be able to rent motorcycles, and if you have a 390 and you're renting a 390, you should be okay.
Right.
I'm not sure what the latest rental rates are, but I'd assume between 10 to 15K a weekend is what your rental for the motorcycle will be. Transport is not such a big deal anymore because a lot of the schools find people in groups who are transporting bikes as a group to the racetrack.
Right.
Ours, for example, there are usually 2 trucks that come from Mumbai. There's another 3 or 4 trucks that come from Bangalore. And smaller Tata Aces, etc. are plugged in for Chennai bikes that are coming to the racetrack. So you might be able to organize a way which is not too expensive, where you're sharing the expense of a truck with friends.
Right.
Leathers are now mandatory at the racetrack. You can't avoid it. The rules changed. Earlier, we used to run the school with people wearing mesh gear. We would ensure that they were in full gear, but it was okay. But now it's not. And you can rent those too.
And trust us, you need leathers on you on a racetrack.
I would say for school, we are okay.
For mesh?
Yeah, we are okay. Because level 1 learning, you're not going that fast. The skills at a school, not saying track days, school. In a school, the agenda is very clear, and that agenda doesn't really allow you to go stupidly quick yet.
All right.
So we've had people crash in mesh and be completely okay with it.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's interesting.
I understand why the racetracks go to leathers, but I'm saying if you're doing a level 1 school and you could do it in mesh, it's just a lower barrier, and I'm okay with that barrier. But the rules today, there's no way to do it. You have to rent leathers, but leathers are rentable too.
Yeah.
So as long as you have a basic gear in place, rent leathers, rent a bike, you'll have to pay for transport and hotels. And I'm going to say between 80,000 to 1.5 lakh rupees is your net budget, inclusive of school and fuel and motorcycle and leathers and everything, depending on the school, depending on the quality of the hotel you stay at, etc.
Right.
Now that sounds like a lot of money for a lot of people.
It is.
It's an investment.
It
If
is.
you don't learn to ride your motorcycle, the first time you end up at a hospital for anything more than 3 days, you will spend more than this. And a racetrack will make you laugh, but a hospital will hurt you first. And then we'll all laugh at you. But what's the one key thing that you never realized about riding a racetrack that has occurred to you since you started?
It's, I think the mental aspect of it, I think there's a lot of, the caricatures of going to a racetrack and being fast. You'll get fit and you'll ride a cool bike and all of that. But it's the game that's going on inside your head.
Yeah.
Again, I think for me, that has been incredible. The reason why I think a lot of us have managed to better ourselves is because we're looking inwards. We're trying to better who we are as riders. And at the end of the day, no 2 riders will be the same. Your machinery is different. And you just have to better yourself.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. And which is why every time I go to a racetrack, it's fun. It's just great fun. It might be frustrating at times. It might be tiring, and it is incredibly tiring. But at the end of the day, you come back, you sit in the pit lane for those 20 minutes once you finished a session. And at the end of the 20 minutes, you know how to make yourself better. And that drive and that ability, I think, just like the riding skills, I think goes onwards with you even outside of the racetrack.
What I learned is 2 things. You know how Honda used to have an ad saying you meet the nicest people on a Honda? You'll meet the nicest people at the racetrack. Once they learn to suspend their egos, and it happens really quickly, you just meet the nicest, most driven, passionate people working things out one step at a time for themselves, taking all the help they can get, giving as much help as they can. And it's just one of the most genuinely warm and passionate experiences you'll ever have. The other thing I've learned is that the machine doesn't matter. You take whatever motorcycle you can get and get to a racetrack. At the end of those 2 days, you will be laughing, you will be having great memories of your time there, and you'll just be going faster and more confident. It doesn't matter what the machine is.
Right.
If you take a unsuitable machine, like say an impulse, you learn what the limit of the impulse feels like. And if you take a really track focused machine like a 600cc super sport, you learn where your limit lies and how much farther the motorcycle is from you and how to bridge that gap slowly, one step at a time. But I think the key message here is that if you're serious about motorcycling, of any kind of motorcycling, accessing a focused environment where you can totally work just on what you are able to do with that motorcycle, whether that's an off-road park for a dirt bike or whether that's a racetrack for everything else. If you haven't done it yet, you're missing out. You know how the millennials say FOMO, the fear of missing out? This one's real.
Time to disconnect.
Disconnect.